It was 1942, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
It was 1942 Harley U model. Excuse me. And used to be my daily rider, and then I rode it for quite a few years. And then I pulled a piston on the Saskatchewan-Alberta border, and I had to bring it back home in a U-Haul. And so I was sort of lost, it kind of lost its charm after that, and I wasn't sure what to do with it, but then we decided to turn it into a racer. And that's what you see now.
So what's the size of the motor and the year?
It's 1942. It originally came from a base in the Second World War II base in Quebec, and it's the big twin flathead. So it was 74 cubic inch. Now it's 80.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the size, motor size, you guys are quite a ways under the motor size for the
We're at 1350.
Yeah.
For the class you're running in, right?
And we went there because of the crank angle, not because of. It gives a better. It just gives a better crank angle to transfer the power to the flywheels, which it has very heavy flywheels.
Yeah.
And we found that worked really well. And the reason we ended up with it, that it blew the hole in the piston, was not really the bike's fault.
No.
We were coming back, and it was raining like shit, and it had us cheap points in it.
Yeah.
And we found a good set of points at a buddy of ours' ranches in Coaldale.
Yeah.
And it was pouring rain, so Gary just slapped the points in, and like we just hit the road, and we were pushing it.
Yeah.
It was too far advanced.
Yeah, pushing it to get out of the rain, and you blew it up.
It was just stupid. But anyway, the bike before that had made many trips to BC.
Yeah.
And never had a problem.
Yeah.
But anyway, after that we had to get a U-Haul, and I moved out to Alonza, and then Gary said, well, could we make a racer out of it?
Yeah.
Which we did.
Yeah.
And we went back to Bonneville with it first year. We set a record. We had a semi-dustbin fairing, which is as much as they would allow us as a dustbin. You still have to show half the wheel. So we did that, and then it set a record that year, so we brought it back, and we went again.
Yeah.
We did some other stuff. Can't even remember what we did now, but I don't know. Whatever. We went back, and we went faster again. We set another record. Then we went back again, and on the last time, I guess we did around 137 miles an hour with it.
Yeah.
But then, when we came back, Gary said, well, what if you could put your knees behind the cylinders rather than have the fairing here, your knees in here, and then your back, because your back's sitting here, it puts a big hole in the air. Like the air has to, it's just not very streamlined, yes? So what we did is we made it so your legs would fit in the wells, and the air follows through and stays laminar right to the end of the bike.
Yeah,
and
so this is the first year with the new bodywork.
This is the first year with this body.
And you've added not only that, but you've got the blower.
We added a supercharger this year.
Supercharger, sorry, yeah.
And it's geared. We took the megaphones and that off because we didn't need it. We put like the little stubs there. You don't need any megaphones or that with a blower, because you're not relying on overlap or tuning. It's just you're just jamming that air in there.
Yeah.
And so we're probably going to run about 4 psi this year just to try it.
Yeah.
It's geared at the way it's geared right now. If it turns 5,000, which it always does, we usually run at 5150 at the top end. So if it turns 5, it'll do 150 miles an hour. If it turns 5150, it'll turn what?
About 150. No, about
160.
about 160.
Just about 160 miles for this year. That's hoping that it handles good, like the fairing and everything else is solid. I mean, it's solid, but whether it
whether it works on paper as well as in theory.
Right. Yeah,
exactly.
Aerodynamically, if it works, it should.
You were talking earlier about the fairing and the logic behind it with the 3 degrees of
Yeah, we've got
change in the.
There's a kind of a blunt nose on it, which is the optimum shape. Pointy isn't good because it separates the air too quickly, causes vortexes. This is a blunt kind of thing that goes at 3 degrees and then to 4 and then back down. And that keeps the air laminar right to the end where it flows off. So that hopefully will give us more.
Yeah.
And I look at that, I just see hours and hours and hours in that bodywork.
Yeah, it is.
It's spectacular job.
Thank you.
It's a piece of art. It really is.
All the panels come off. You have to.
Yeah.
It's got like your brake and everything right here. It's got an automatic fuel sensing device. Apparently, we've never tried it before, but it's supposed to give you fuel to air ratio and all that. So we're trying to get into the modern age.
And you're using 2 fuel pumps as well.
Yeah, 2 Yamaha Yamaha Roadstar, right?
Yeah, Yamaha Roadstar.
Yeah.
fuel
We wish
pumps.
that we knew that before because we could have used it on the 45 and we never knew they existed. So for this, it's the perfect thing. And we can control either one there. And we have like cylinder head temperature so we can monitor on the thing that we're doing. And
we
blower boost.
go over the controls you got there?
Yeah. Your hand shifter is here. Okay. There's a foot shifter just to go up, or actually just from 3rd to 4th, so you can stay tucked in. Your hand shifter is here. This here is just your. Cuts in your fuel, whatever ratio gauge. Your cylinder hit temp is there. This is your fuel pump on and master switch. This is your master switch here. This is your pump 1, pump 2, and that's your boost gauge there, which just tells you the amount of boost you got over atmosphere. And that here is your blow-off valve. It just, anything over 8 psi comes out here.
Yeah. And you've now got a carb on each side of the engine.
There's a carb on one side, goes to a Y manifold, goes to the supercharger, comes out of the supercharger, past the blow-off valve, and they're curved intakes into the ports, which we made. They're individual. They're not like a Harley. Each one goes separate into each cylinder by its own port.
Yeah.
All these panels come off. This panel here, from here to here, weighs what? A pound?
If that.
If that.
Wow.
Yeah, it looks massive, but it actually weighs nothing. It's all hat sections and reinforced. Like it's all aluminum. It's all T3 aluminum.
Yep.
And
The thing that looks kind of like a World War I tank.
yeah.
It's so light. I mean, it's just incredible.
And this is your fuel tank. You got a dime or something?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I don't. Anyway, this is if you just pop this open and your fuel tank's in there. This is your seat. Obviously, you don't. Not going very far on it.
Right.
But it's just so you can get off. Obviously, this is just for loading, and that
Yep.
comes off there. Your tachometer's up here. Your air valves but you can adjust the suspension with the air on the top here.
And are you using a speedometer or GPS or anything to
No,
get to
they
the
don't
speed on?
allow it.
They don't?
No.
Oh,
You
really?
can't have GPS of any kind.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I don't know why, but they don't allow it.
They don't want arguments from the contestants.
Right, I guess not.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, there's the fuel tank in there.
Geez, that's nice and clean.
And that's, you just pop it in like that. You know,
We still use a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
That's got its own little fairing on it.
There, that's your fuel tank.
Yeah.
And what else? Oh,
You're all-
steering dampers here.
Okay. Just one on the one side?
Just
or
the
you...
one on this one. We found that we had 2 on the early ones,
That's what
and
I
they
thought.
were really good.
Yeah.
But this one's so strong that we just needed one. It was just amazing. Like you just clicked it down about halfway, you could hardly turn the bars. So we figured it was pretty good.
Got the NACA ducts to
Oh yeah.
feed the air to the...
Yeah.
Oh! So those cool off your cylinders and
There's one on each side.
and do they carry right out through to the back of the bike?
They're pointed
Yeah.
at different places, but yeah, your back vents are here.
Okay.
But that is just, each one's pointed at for different purpose. It's sealed off here, so you're only cooling the air. going through the cylinders, not
Right.
through the crankcase, and causing a bunch of turbulence. And it also cools the ports and everything else, and exhaust valves on that side.
Yeah.
So this one's actually more for the exhaust valves than anything.
Yeah, it is.
The other side is more for the cylinders.
Okay.
It comes up over the top and around the back of the cylinder. You can see, you can't see it, but there's a baffle back there
Yeah.
that directs it there, and then it comes out here.
Yeah. You were also talking about the coils you had, that they were
Yeah, they're
coils that go into dual
they're
plugs.
not actually coils. They're we use aircraft spark plugs,
Okay.
and there's 2 of them in each cylinder. But we ended up they're high altitude harness, so that the salt or anything, they're completely sealed. They're also made for high altitude, so it's not going to arc out anywhere. But to get it to have single fire ignition with one magneto, we had to get splitters.
Yeah.
Now nobody really knows how they work,
Yeah, but they do work.
but they work.
Yeah.
And you can come.
Yeah, it is.
It takes from one like the two, so like on a Harley coil, you're firing 2 at the same time. Okay. This one goes to one splitter. This one goes to the other splitter. Each splitter has 2
2 spark plugs.
2 spark plugs.
Yeah.
But when this one fires, it goes from this lead to that plug, and somehow
Yeah.
through this one
To the other
to
plug
the other plug,
in the same cylinder.
but on the same cylinder.
Yeah.
We asked the guy at Fairbanks Morris how it worked.
And he's
What
like,
did he tell us?
I don't really know.
So we ended up with it, but it works great. You can kick it; it'll actually go tick, 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 tick back. So it's single fire dual ignition.
Yeah.
It's super reliable. Fairbanks Morris magneto.
Yeah.
It's got the modern magnets in it. I didn't see that they were any better than the old ones,
No.
but it gives really fat spark, and the faster you turn it, the more spark you get. So it's
And the
never
beauty
had a
is with
problem.
Doing that, we divide the combustion chamber up with the 2 spark plugs, and so you get faster ignition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on crank angle, where we positioned it on this one,
Yeah.
if you fire 5 plugs in that cylinder, it's only marginally better than firing the 2 we are the way they're situated.
Yeah.
And that's a real bonus on this because it got super efficient.
Yeah.
Remember we were running for gas on the 45, eh?
Oh yeah, this is crazy.
Yeah,
So you're running aircraft spark plugs as well?
yeah. Yeah, in this one. On the 45, we couldn't, just because of the nature of the head, we couldn't position them. It was still good,
Yeah.
but we couldn't position the plugs to where the optimum for, to propagate the flame quicker.
Yeah, we
On
ended
this-
up with 1 plug over each valve
Yeah,
in that. Whereas in this one, we have one plug over the intake valve,
yeah,
and the other plug is we put a real small plug sort of halfway across the area between the valves and the cylinder,
yeah,
and then so it splits up the combustion chamber really nicely.
yeah. And the crank, you can see on a crank angle, they've actually, some guy made a thing to be able to judge, eh?
Yeah,
Like how fast it propagates the flame.
yeah,
So and this one it made a difference with the speed of the ports. This one, when we first drilled into the sides of the cylinders to see if we could get a proper port, we first drilled in and went, holy shit, we just fucked up a set of cylinders, eh?
yeah, especially.
And we thought you just couldn't do it. And then it turned out to be the best ports we ever did. That you could just put them at a bit of an angle so that you get that swirl
Yeah.
in the cylinder. And they were just the way the thing was cast, eh?
Yeah.
It was just perfect. So we got really high velocity. It's about 350, eh?
Plus a nice little bit of swirl with it.
Yeah,
To keep
beautiful.
the fuel in suspension.
Yeah, beautiful swirl in the cylinder.
Yeah.
And the efficiency went right out of it was using half the gas
Yeah.
of the 45,
Probably less than half.
or less than half, yeah.
We brought, we'd always run the 45 when we go through gas like crazy.
Yeah.
And then we brought a great big huge carboy of gas for this thing.
Yeah.
And we brought along, and we used like that much off the top of it. And that was it.
That's with 4 runs.
With 4 runs.
We couldn't even believe it. I don't even know how you could do that on a modern street bike.
Yeah.
It was just that efficient. It just, whatever it was, a combination of everything,
Yeah.
and the cams,
Yeah.
it just turned into something, and you can kickstart it.
Yep.
You know, everybody there are using bikes we're racing against, eh? They're all using crank starters and
Yep.
rollers and everything. The guy, it's your turn, go, you know, we're going. He says, no, you got to start it. Yeah? Boom. It goes. Yeah, what the
Yeah.
fuck, you know? But
Yeah.
anyway, like, yeah,
Well, even your Kickstarter's artwork there, like you've got the
yeah, we
the
wanted
little
something that
Well, it's fair.
cover to hold it.
come out of the fairing. Eh?
But the spring is sort of built into the fairing too,
Yeah,
right? Like
so once it's running, you just
yeah.
click, boom,
Yeah.
it's back in there, and it's out of your way. And it's got the spring. You can see the spring on the side. It looks like a big wind-up toy.
It does. It looks great though.
Yeah.
It just looks great.
Rocket ship with a kickstand.
Yeah. Nice. So I see you got Zendan. Is that the right
Yeah,
pronunciation?
Zedan Farms.
Zedan Farms.
Yeah, Zedan Farms is a guy. He's a big rancher out there,
Yeah.
and I do some work for him and that. And they were really on board with the project, so they gave us a pile of money.
Yeah.
And then Cap Transport last year, he sponsored us for 2 years, eh?
Yeah.
And he gave us a pile of money. So, because it's super expensive. This
Oh,
is not,
entrance fee just to get in. What's the entrance fee?
I really appreciate the support I got from Manitoba Antiqua, because
Yeah.
it really comes in handy. Like this bike, just to register it now is what, $1,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Canadian.
You
Well, Canadian.
Oh, Canadian, yeah.
Canadian.
By the time you're done.
So that's just to register it in one class.
Wow.
And then, and not only that, before we used to get a pit crew of 3 people. Now you got to pay for. I got to pay for a rider. Larry's gonna have to pay $350 just to ride a fucking bike. You got to pay for pit crew.
Yep.
You got to pay your own way in. That's with your entry fee.
Yeah.
And now the other bike, we still got to do
You gotta
that.
do that, like,
That's another. By the time you get through
$1,000.
another $1,000. Now your gas down there used to be about what, 1,000?
yeah.
Yeah, 1,650 miles one way.
Yeah.
So you add that up. And, this year we're taking 2 vehicles. And so before we kind of go to these motels, but I think this year we're going to be sleeping outside beside the bike. So that way we can make up the gas money.
Yeah.
So we're just bringing a bedroll. And,
Are you gonna normally you take a roundabout way getting down there,
Yeah.
stay off the interstates? Is
Yeah,
that gonna
we're-
change?
Yeah, we're still going to do that.
Still gonna do that.
So we got away. We go from here down to this edge of this Indian Reserve on the Missouri River. We camp there. We go the next day to Rollins. That's the longest day, and then from there to Salt Lake through Green River,
Yeah.
and that's the longest day. The second day is the longest.
No, very cool. Well, thank you very much for the talk. It's
Thanks for the
an
support.
amazing bike. Like I say, it's a fine piece of art,
Great, thank you.
and it looks fast even in a trailer. Thanks again, Ted. Thanks, Gary.
Okay.